You, from the beginning, because after all you're an American singer, did you feel from the beginning, I play to win, I need to be on top? Did you have this will to become number one, to have actual success?
Why? Because American singers do that?
Well, generally, American artists at large have big ambitions, and they want to make it big. It's nothing wrong with that, by the way.
I always had a lot of ambition, but I think a lot of that stemmed from the fact that I grew up without a lot of money. I grew up coming from a multiracial background, and I grew up feeling like an outsider, and the one thing that I had that made me feel special was my voice and my music, so that drove me and inspired me. And to me, like, just getting a record deal was like, oh wow, I got a record deal. I didn't even know what gold records meant or platinum records or any of those things, I mean, now I'm totally appreciative of that, obviously, but I didn't know at that point. I was just happy to be doing my thing,
To speak about the last album, there's a cast of producers which is kind of amazing. I mean, all the top names. Did you choose them yourself? How did you get all these people working on your sound?
Well, first of all, I worked with Jermaine Dupri on my last album. We did Always Be My Baby together, the remix on the original version, and one other song on the album called Long Ago. This is on the Daydream album. So we've been working together since like '95, and we've been good friends since then. Brad and Jermaine and I are good friends. So I like working with people who I like, and I also respect him as a producer, because unlike some people who are very big producers and never go into the studio and have everybody else doing their work for them, Jermaine actually is in the studio with me. Like, I'll stay in the studio all night, Jermaine will stay there all night, we'll work together. So that was a given that we would work together. Puffy and I did the Fantasy remix in '95 with Old Dirty Bastard, and that was one of my most successful singles. So, when it came time to do this album, I went to him again. I was like, do you want to do a remix, da-da-da-da? He was like, I want to get on the album. So we were like, all right, let's do some records on the album. And it was good because he's also got someone that works for Bad Boy named Stevie J, who's really talented, and we ended up in the studio together a lot, working together. And then, I worked with Missy Elliott because I first heard her on an MC Lyte record that I really loved, and then I realized that she was writing all those songs, for Aaliyah and Genuine and everything she was doing, and I, reached out.
As I said, that you discovered rap as a listener. I suppose you were fairly young.
The first time I discovered rap as a listener was probably 5th grade when Rapper's Delight came out, and we used to listen to the record over and over and memorize the words. Sugar Hill Gang.
And then did you follow up, or?
Yeah. And then from there, it was like, whatever records really crossed over, because it really wasn't the underground records that got to the little 5th and 6th grade kids at that point. I mean, I grew up in New York listening to like BLS and Kiss, where they really first broke rap music. So you would have like, Curtis Blow or Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, like those kind of records that got that big were the records that, we would hear. And then gradually as time went on, and rap became more, I mean, it was still basically those stations playing those records, but, when like Slick Rick and Dougie Fresh came out, those were like the big records when I was in high school. And then, I've been a fan of rap music because I feel like I grew up with it, And a lot of people might not understand that or even realize that, because my image prior to this album or prior to the remixes that I've done, which half of people don't even know I did those remixes, was not that. But the thing is, when you're from New York and you're like listening to urban music and urban radio, that's what it is, So it's not a new phenomenon. Maybe to some people in the world who didn't grow up with rap and now have gotten into it, it's a new phenomenon. But to me, it's kind of just like old hat.
But as an artist now making music, did you at one point specifically want to incorporate that sound or that hip-hop vibe inside your music? Did you have this conscious decision at one point of your musical career?
Well, what happened was actually some of my demos when I made my first album, I had like Vision of Love on the demo, another song called Vanishing, Alone in Love, which was like an R&B ballad that I wrote when I was like 15. And then there were some other songs that were more urban influence. Like there was a song called Hypnotized that the company didn't want me to put it on the record because they felt it was too urban, it didn't really fit, and then I got put with other producers who were much more slick. And at that point, I was just going with the flow. So I was like, I'm happy I have a record deal, whatever. And, you know, I'm not saying that there aren't songs on that album that I'm proud of, but actually I like the demos that I did better than the first album. Like the Vision of Love demo was better than the record, you know?
But you know, it's surprising because as a journalist, you can't imagine how many artists will tell you, especially for the first records, you know, the demos were so much better.
Yeah.
The early version, the early drafts were really great. How come it's so common, the idea of having the first records of an artist that are not exactly like you want them to be, or more pop or more this or that? How do you explain that?
Well, see, especially with Vision of Love, we did that in the studio, which was when I used to work with a guy named Ben Margulies. He's who I worked with when I was in high school and we were doing demos, and he was older and his father had a wood shop. And he had a studio in the back of this wood shop, right? So we could work in there from like the time the guy stopped hammering till, you know, the next morning when they came in. And we had just a computer and like an 8-track, not an 8-track like the old 8-track things, but like 8 tracks to record on. So we, Vision of Love, basically I did on my own backgrounds and all that stuff, filled up those 8 tracks. Some of the vocals on Vision of Love are from that original demo recording because it just was that, couldn't recreate it. You know what I mean? It was, the emotion was there and I didn't recreate it. And the track was really simple. But then, like when we produced it and the record company and everybody got involved, it just became too slick, like it had too much production comparatively. Like if someone else didn't know, like now it doesn't bother me, but back then I would listen to the demo and be like, the demo was better. The demo was really better because there weren't so many opinions involved.
Butterfly, lots of journalists or people saw it as a quote-unquote metamorphosis or kind of act of emancipation in the sense that you are showing another side of yourself. Did you know that it was going to be that type of a shock for some of the audience to that this is the new Mariah Carey and it's fairly different from what one would have expected from the last albums?
What I think this album is, I think it is a metamorphosis in a way, but I think that what it is an updated version of my favorite things from each album. Meaning that I don't think it's a drastic change. Like, yes, I collaborated with Bone Thugs and Harmony, but to me, that record is kind of like the Always Be My Baby of this album, you know? I mean, you have to keep updating yourself. And The Roof is hard, you know, a harder edged record than I've done before because of the loop and because Mobb Deep is on there, but it's just like a natural evolution, and the vocals are, it's not like I'm coming out there, you know, rapping. It's not like I'm suddenly, you know, I've changed. It's still, to me, like a lyrical evolution, and I still have ballads like Butterfly and My All and Whenever You Call. So I didn't do anything radical. I think a lot of people tried to put it in that direction to kind of maybe trick people into thinking, I don't know, that I went crazy or something. But to me, it was a natural evolution from remixes with Jermaine Dupri and Puffy. All I do is basically incorporate that flavor onto the album.
But I'm sure, I mean, you have to agree, being having sold so many million records, there was a safer way to do an album. I mean, you could have well made, you know, an album that was exactly or more or less like, you know, copycat of the previous one and maybe sold 2 times more. I mean, did you think about the safe way and the hard way? Because at that point you have to think, am I going to do the right thing?
Well, I feel like I did the right thing, and I feel like I made the records that I wanted to make, and I feel like records like My All, which are just coming out, will evoke the same feeling that maybe a Vision of Love or Hero or something like that evoked in the fans that want to hear those straight-up ballads. But, you know, I don't think that the up-tempos on this record are that much different. I just think they're updated. This is 98, you know. I can't stay in the past because it's safe, you know, and although people would like me to do that, some people like me to do that, I'm not going to do that, and it's not fun for me either. And that's why visually this time around I had more fun. I was able to like do things differently. I was able to express more of my personality through the visuals, and, you know, if anything, that was a drastic change.
In America, which like very often little boxes for music, I mean, you've got agile contemporary, R&B, pop, and you seem to have one foot in between 2 or 3 categories. So has that been a problem for you, for radios or for promotion in America, the idea of being like a bit pop, a bit R&B, but also dance, maybe a bit on the rap side, you know.
I don't know if I consider it a problem, but I think that I have, I mean, with each album, I've tried to do a well-rounded thing, and sometimes it's really bothered me when certain records that I felt strongly about, like Underneath the Stars on the Daydream album, which was I really thought it was a great R&B song, was never released. So people never got to hear those sides of you know, where I was coming from musically. And I think with this album, yeah, maybe sometimes it might be confusing to a fan who just wants to hear that big bombastic ballad, but you know, they're still there. They might not be as bombastic, because you don't always have to do that.
It's a very hard world in the sense that there are a lot of performers, entertainers, and in that respect, do you consider yourself in a fight, if I might say, in a challenge at least with other girl singers, whether it's Janet Jackson, Madonna, whoever is also very important as a female singer? Do you consider yourself them as rivals, as opponents? What type of relationship do you have with the other girls?
Well, I really don't have, it's not like we hang out and have tea together. I mean, it's not like we have relationships like that. But the thing is that I would be happy to have friends who could relate to what I go through, you know, as an artist and as a celebrity and as a person in the music business. But there is a lot of competitiveness in this business, and I think that I've experienced, you know, certain people being negative and giving me, you know, making negative statements and giving off negativity because of jealousy and because of the competition. But the truth is, we're all different. And so there's really no reason. I mean, like Janet and Madonna, literally, I'm fans of a lot of their work. Like, even, you know, they're like, Janet's first album was out when I was in high school. Like, I was a freak. I still listen to that record. You know, I still listen to Madonna's. Well, not really that much, but I mean, like, when I was in, like, junior high, I used to love her first album and all those records that were just, like, fun. It was part of growing up. So I don't even necessarily put myself in that category. I look at it like, you know, we're all, it's good, you know. Why make it a drama?
We see, not only in your music, but also in your image, a will from you to be in control more and more. And I've heard that you were very much implied also in videos, in shooting, and in also editing. Could you tell us how you got involved with that technique? Because after all, I mean, it's not, you know, fascinating, the technical side, spending hours on, you know, shots or images or editing. So why did you want to be in control of that part also?
Well, it all started with fantasy. And I think that started because some people didn't want me to work with certain directors who might bring out certain parts of me that they didn't want to be seen.
Okay.
So it was like, why don't you direct the video? So I was like, all right. You know, when I did it, and I think that fantasies, there are some good elements of that video. The ODB version, there are some classic things in it, like when he ties up the clown. I like that version. But I think that it was too ambitious of a shoot. You know, the day to the night thing didn't really work, so it wasn't as good as it could be. And I learned from that. And then on this album, it sort of just happened because I would have a concept, and then sometimes when you go to a director and you give them a concept, they don't have the same vision as you. So it comes out as something totally different. But I liked, like, working with Herb Ritts, who had a concept. He came to me with the concept. He did everything. He storyboarded it. He did the sets. He edited it, and he gave it to me. I changed like 1 or 2 shots, and that was it. And if I could do that all the time, I'd be happy. But I guess as a songwriter, sometimes I get a visual thing in my head, and I can't let go of it.
Do you have an idea already now of what the future is going to be like for you?
Well, I'm hoping they're going to release a few more singles from this album. And I have, I'm shooting a movie in July with Chris Tucker called 00 Soul. I believe this is all put together now so I can talk about it. And I think it's going to be a really fun project. And then there's a movie that's being rewritten right now for me. And it's, the working title is All That Glitters. And it's a project that I'm really, really involved in. And the soundtrack is going to be something really interesting because it's set in the 70s and it's inspired by like all the soul music of the 70s. Not the disco part necessarily, but more like what was going on in soul music. So
That's what I call a real challenge, because even though you've sold millions and millions and millions of albums, you know yourself that being a singer who wants to become an actor, you'll have everybody pointing down on you, haha, now she wants to become an actor, but is she good?
Yeah.
Are you ready for that type of slack that might come from...
There's going to be slack no matter what I do. And the truth of the matter is I've wanted to act for a really long time, and there have been personal things that have prevented that. And so now being able to do it, I feel like it's just going to be able to either, like with this project in July, that's more about fun, and it's a comedy, and it's action. It's going to be, I'm really looking forward to that. The other project is going to be a big emotional release for me. So either way, whatever people say, it's still going to be beneficial to me as a person. And I've been studying for like a year and a half, and I'm not going into it like some people, like, I don't need to study. I'm a big star. Like, that's not my vibe. My vibe is you can always be better at what you do and improve yourself as a person and as an artist, and that's how I'm going into this.
So does it mean that you do it now because you know you're ready for it, and it's not like just something that you can afford if you want to? Do you really do it because you think now is the time that you're ready to do it? Or?
No, I would have done it a couple of years ago, but people were trying to dissuade me at that point. And, at this point, I'm trying to kind of make up for lost time because I really wanted to do it before. I mean, I studied acting as a little girl. It's something that I've always wanted to do. So, yes, I feel I'm ready for it at this point, and maybe it was right for me to wait until now. But whatever, just the studying itself has helped me as an artist and everything. So.